A very good morning to you. Watching the Channel 10 Breakfast Show on Wednesday, the 25th of February. My name is Nikki Dean.
And my name is Byron Evans. And over recent years, I've had bits of stick and abuse over my name. I've been called Brian, Barry, and all sorts of different variations of the great name that is Byron. But spare a thought for some other people who have been born with unfortunate names. This has been a list compiled by the Baby website of, well, I suppose, names that the parents didn't realise the implications of at the time.
Or perhaps they did and they're just mean. We've got one here, Stan Still. He said about his name, it's been a blooming millstone around my neck my entire life. There's another one, Doug Hole.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Will Power.
Yeah, good one.
Although, psychologically, there's a little analysis been done as well. And aside from it probably being a bit embarrassing and a bit annoying because everybody stops, wants to make a joke, it can actually have some positive benefits as well because people don't forget you. Indeed,
yeah. And I think Rose Bush from Coventry would agree with you there. She actually loves her name. But there's some American ones as well. Billboard.
You're joking.
No, I'm not. I'm not joking. Annette Curtin.
Like it.
Karaoke.
Good one.
And An Apprentice.
And there's also Paige Turner. Great name if you're an author.
Yes. I'm sure there's some other ones as well which aren't broadcastable at this time in the morning. If you want to join in the banter, don't hesitate. Email us, breakfast@channelm.co.uk. Text us, 88821, start your message with show. And we're having a right old giggle on this morning's programme, as we intend to do for the final hour of this morning's programme. In a few minutes, all the latest sporting headlines with Mike Bradley as we look at last year's Champions League clash between Manchester United and Inter Milan, and whether to rent or mortgage with our debt buster, Richard Fenton. But first, let's get today's news with Bev Wharton.
Good morning from the Obis newsroom. Here are some of today's top stories hitting the headlines. A Bolton man who stabbed his wife 82 times during a jealous rage is beginning a life sentence for murder. 29-year-old Brian Taylor of Chorley Old Road, Bolton, admitted killing Katie Boardman of Macefield Drive, Farmworth, in front of their 4 children last October because she'd been on a night out with friends. Katie appeared on the Jeremy Kyle TV show as part of a family reunion the year before her murder. A taxi driver stabbed his wife to death just days after abusing her, a court has been told. Sabina Akhtar was murdered by Malik Manan just 5 days after police told him not to see her. 26-year-old Sabina was a mother of 3 and was found dead at her home in Charlton Road, Levenshulme, in September last year. It's been revealed that masked men held a knife to the throat of footballer Darren Fletcher's girlfriend. His home in Bowden was raided on Monday night. 3 men forced his fiancée to take off her engagement ring. It happened just hours after the 25-year-old Scotland player jetted off to Italy for a Champions League match. Police now believe a gang is operating as several footballers' homes have been targeted while they've been away from home. More than 150 police officers swooped on suspected drug dealers before dawn across Stockport this morning. 14 homes were raided and 12 people were arrested on suspicion of conspiracy to supply Class A drugs. Detectives have been gathering intelligence for several months to track down the suspects who are now being held for questioning. The Chief Constable told us these raids sent out an important message.
Sometimes these are long-term operations. It involves a huge effort in terms of evidence gathering, but these sorts of operations show that we will follow it up and that we're trying to hit the drug market and the drug dealers really at all stages. We're picking up information from local people, but this sort of operation is only part of an overall strategy where we're hitting dealers, hitting addicts, but at the same time also at the other end of the game dealing with the organised crime groups that we know are feeding the market and are trying to import drugs into the country.
Now, do you recognise any of these men captured here on CCTV by the British Transport Police? They're wanted in connection with a violent incident at Manchester Piccadilly last month. Football fans from Wigan and Oldham had been drinking in sports bar at the station when a small number of Oldham fans assaulted a Wigan supporter. Some national news now, and Jack Straw is being accused of a cover-up after stopping the release of cabinet papers on the decision to invade Iraq. He used a clause in the Freedom of Information law to prevent publication of minutes of 2 key cabinet meetings back in 2003. The cabinet meetings considered the hugely controversial issue of whether the invasion was legal under international law. Lord Maurice Taylor, also known as Lord Windsor, has allegedly tricked an art dealer into buying a fake L.S. Lowry painting for £330,000, Chester Crown Court has been told. The painting is called The Mill Street Scene and is said to be a well-known forgery on Manchester's art scene. Lord Taylor, 60, who lives in a mansion near Congleton, Cheshire, told a number of dealers he had bought the painting in the early 1970s. Lord Taylor denies 6 counts of fraud and one of forging an invoice to cover his tracks. Postal workers around the country are protesting over plans to sell off 30% of Royal Mail. More than 120 Labour MPs are against the idea, fearing it could lead to job losses if it goes private. Now, today marks Alcohol-Free Week to coincide with the beginning of Lent. It's a campaign that's being launched in Old Trafford to make people more aware of the dangers of drinking too much. Research out today shows just 1 drink a day raises cancer rates in women. Being fat is just as unhealthy as smoking, according to the latest research. A study in the British Medical Journal shows obese poses the same health risks as someone who is slim but smokes more than 10 cigarettes a day. Retired ambulance man Mel Jones is living proof that cancer can be beaten, and his recovery was the result of a groundbreaking technique that's being tested at the world-famous Christie Hospital. Kevin Duffy's got more.
Mel Jones's ponytail is his pride and joy, but conventional treatment for cancer would have caused his hair to fall out. However, Mel's cancer, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, was treated using a pioneering technique called radioimmunotherapy. As a result, Mel kept his hair on, and most importantly, the cancer treatment was successful.
I started the treatment in late June and finished my treatment in October. And the week before Christmas 2007, he gave me a Christmas present that it was clear.
Mel was treated at the Christie in South Manchester, where doctors described the new technique as being a kind of magic bullet.
The advantage of this sort of approach is it's much more specific.
In simple terms, a cancer-killing radioactive compound is attached to a special molecule which is injected into the body, and this goes directly, but only, to where the cancer is.
Unlike chemotherapy, which goes throughout the body and not only will kill the cancer cells, but also the normal cells like the gut and the hair, which is the reason why we see side effects with chemotherapy, with some patients losing their hair or getting sickness.
If I'd have had the conventional treatment, I would have lost my hair, and I didn't do. And I'd got a 10-year ponytail, which I didn't want to lose.
Mel Jones was very much a guinea pig in a clinical trial. What scientists at the Christie have now got to do is to develop this new technique in the hope of bringing it into general use. Kevin Duffy for Channel M News.
That's all from me for now, but there'll be more Channel M News at noon, and then Andy Crane will be fronting the 5 o'clock show. Now let's have a look at today's sports stories with Mike and Byron.
Well, to find out what's hot off the press, I'm joined this morning by Ivor Biggin. Sorry, Mike Bradley.
No need to brag. Stockport County boss Jim Gannon, he's heading to the South Coast this morning for talks with Brighton and Hove Albion about becoming their next manager. Mickey Adams walked out on the club on Saturday, so bad news for Stockport County, but I think it's going to be good news for Brighton should that deal go through.
Yeah, OK, it seems to be fully packed up at Everton, 1 in, 1 out.
1 in, 1 out. They're going to make a move for Portsmouth one-way midfield superstar Nico Crankiar, so he's the one coming in, and Victor Anachabi will be out for at least 4 weeks, so he was injured against Newcastle. So 1 in, 1 out. Difficult times for David Moyes.
OK, the head honchos at Wembley could do with the wall chart.
They could do with the wall chart, and they could do with their backsides kicking. They've double-booked Wembley for 2011. The date they have for the weekend of the League One playoffs, they've also booked in the Champions League final. So they're going to move the playoffs down the road to Cardiff, and the Football League will sue the FA. I tell you what, talk about scoring an own goal could only happen to the FA. It's ridiculous.
It does beg a belief,
Absolutely.
doesn't it? OK, let's turn our attentions to what's happening within the region. And a golfing store in Manchester is giving...
Golfing store in Sale. Quick plug for Scottsdale in Sale. BBC commentator Paul Eales and the famous tour star Lee Slattery will be giving tips and advice on your mental game. That's Thursday at 6:45. If you never met Paul Eales, go along. He will change your game in 5 minutes.
OK, you started off talking about Jim Gannon. Stockport County were in action last night. How'd they get on?
Stockport County were in action last night in League One, along with Oldham. First of all, Stockport County lost 1-0 at Colchester. Disappointing result, but by the time they kicked off, they knew they were probably going to lose their manager. Oldham, for what it was worth, slipped up at home, missed the first half penalty, then things went from bad to worse. Lost against Bristol Rovers 2-0. For both those teams, they really need to win at the weekend. Well, hopefully, if Jim's still around, we'll be speaking to Jim Gannon on Saturday after the game. As far as League Two is concerned, let's take a quick look how the result shapes up there. Rochdale beat Darlington 2-1. Adam Lefondre was preferred up front, and he started the game. Scored after 28 minutes. Abbott equalised on the hour. Adam Rundle fired the winner in 2 minutes later. Rochdale are winners 2-1, looking good for automatic promotion.
OK, in the Champions League last night, it finished goalless as Manchester United drew with Inter Milan. Both you and I have differing views as to who has the advantage in the next leg. What do the people of Manchester think?
People of Manchester, well, they side with you. They think United are already through to the next round.
We found it a bit hard going in the second half. The first half, I feel the tie could have been nearly all over, the chances we created. I feel Rooney was unlucky to be booked. I didn't really see a lot wrong there. Take 0-0 back to Old Trafford all day long. Me and my friends come up from London today just to watch it with the boys. Love it.
Absolutely dominated the whole first half. I was a bit surprised Milan was so disappointing, really, but all the better.
I would have been happy with the victory, but a draw will do.
So how did you think the game would go before you watched it? Were you a bit nervous about it?
I was a bit nervous. I think Inter's a very good team, but we're just as good, and we proved that tonight.
We had all the chances, and let's just hope we can finish them off in the second leg.
I think that if we play like we did tonight, we've got a very good chance of going through the next round. So go United. I feel it. I think we're going to go through.
Busting tips now with Richard Fenton, and we were talking a little bit earlier about names, just in time, just in cash. You could be just in case I've given it away. You could be Saviour Cash.
Yes, I quite like that. Yeah. Just trick down to the deep hole there.
Anyway, just made a right pig's ear of that one. We're talking renting today. To rent or not to rent? That is the question.
And it's a very good question as well. Unless you've got the cash to buy outright or a big fat deposit, and by big and fat I mean 15% or more, then I think it's very definitely the time to rent. Certainly for the next 12, 18 months, see what happens with the market. Certainly there's some bargains to be had out there, but you do need the cash to get the bargains, because obviously the mortgages are very difficult to come by at the moment unless you're already on the property ladder.
So mortgaging is quite a good idea at the moment, because over recent years it's kind of been frowned upon a little bit, hasn't it? It's perhaps what you do whilst you're saving a deposit to buy your own house, because essentially that's what people have been brought up to think they should do, end up with their own mortgage, isn't it? Yeah,
I mean, it's kind of a legacy of the Thatcher era, and we do book the trend in this country. The rest of Europe tend to go the other way towards renting. Renting does have its advantages. It gives you a great deal of flexibility. You can upgrade and downgrade at will, depending on the terms of the lease, of course, but it's much easier to get out of a rental agreement than it is to get out of a mortgage agreement, particularly when the market's depressed. But there are things to watch out for. Make sure that your landlord's up to speed. Make sure he's paying his mortgage, because if he's not paying his mortgage, the bank will repossess, and we're hearing stories at the moment where people are getting 72 hours notice to quit the property, get their goods out, and there's nothing anybody can do about that unless they're actually aware of what's going on, and seldom they are.
So how do you go about then making sure that the person off whom you're going to rent is legit, if you like?
I think that the first and best thing to do is actually to see proof that the mortgage company is aware that the property is being rented. That way the mortgage company are then aware of your existence. Then if there are any problems with the property and it goes to the bailiffs, then they're very likely to let you know. And there's nothing wrong with actually asking the landlord to see their Experian credit report, so you can actually see how healthy they are or not. And if it looks iffy, if it doesn't look right, if it doesn't smell right, just walk away, find yourself another property. There's plenty out there at the moment for people to rent.
I'll say. Is it cheaper to rent or is it cheaper to buy?
At the moment, it's a renter's market in terms of the people that are renting the properties. So rental prices have gone up, but it's still cheaper on the whole to rent a property than it is to purchase a property, because, of course, you've not got that initial huge cash outlay of 15%. You've probably got a couple of months' rent to lay out up front, and then you're in the property and you're secure for 6 months or 12 months, depending on your lease.
And I suppose, as you say, you're not tied down then, are you? You can swap off after 6 months if you fancy a change of scenery.
Exactly, and if your circumstances change beyond your control as well, you're not tied into that mortgage. Trying to get out of a mortgage these days, you're going to have to sell your property at rock bottom price and probably have a shortfall as well, which you'll still have to pay, and you won't have the property.
OK, very interesting indeed. Thank you very much, Richard. We'll see you again next week. Time now for a quick break. Coming up after which, how to sweep away the cobwebs and spring clean your whole life. We'll see you soon.
The Channel M Legal Clinic is opening and we're offering free legal advice with Owen Mitchell Solicitors. So if you have any legal questions, just email us at breakfast@channelm.co.uk before the 9th of March. The Channel M Legal Clinic, in association with Owen Mitchell.